Relax and listen to the voice. Back again with Conspiracy Theories Volume 2. Buckle in, it's going to be a confusing ride. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to hit the bell so you're notified every time we have a new video. Here we go. The Apollo moon mission was the first spaceflight that landed human beings on the moon. This was conducted by Commander Neil Armstrong and lunar module pilot Buzz Aldrin from the United States of America. But did we really go to the moon, or were the moon landings faked? There are plenty of people that think they were faked and think that Apollo 11 didn't actually happen. They believe that humans have never set foot on the moon. Conspiracy theories surrounding the moon landings have been proved worryingly persistent in the 50-plus years since Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin took their first small steps on a lunar surface. Despite being able to find plenty of information online, in news media, and in print to debunk the conspiracy theories, people still believe that this was a hoax. Director Stanley Kubrick has also been credited in a less than positive light for being a part of a program that was hired to film the fake moon landing. Kubrick has denied this, yet the conspiracies still continue, with theorists citing the idea that Kubrick has left many clues throughout his body of work, which to them are a way for Stanley Kubrick to admit that he had a hand in the fake moon landing without coming out and directly saying it. Unfortunately, Stanley Kubrick is now deceased, so if he was involved with faking the moon landing, he will forever remain silent on the subject. One of the reasons that people believe this was a hoax is due to some of the shadowing in the landing photos that were taken. Some people say that the shadows in photos, which show Neil Armstrong and another item that appears to look similar to a flagpole, are not parallel in the picture. Thinking about this, if the sun was the only light source, then the shadows would be parallel and not pointing at different angles. The thinking behind this is that there must have been multiple sources of light to create different angles to the shadows. Another portion of the conspiracy theory states that the Apollo astronauts would not have been able to survive the Earth's radiation fields. In this theory, people cite the fact that the Earth is surrounded by a zone of charged particles known as the Van Allen radiation belt. About the radiation belt, one professor is noted to have said, "These are regions surrounding the Earth in our magnetic field where high-energy trapped particles from the sun tend to get confined. What that means is if you are going into these regions, there would be an extremely high radiation content and concern." With that in mind, according to conspiracy theorists, there's no possible way that the Apollo astronauts could have traveled through the Van Allen radiation belt and out of Earth's orbit without sustaining massive doses of radiation, which would have potentially instantly killed them, or surely killed them or caused extreme adverse reactions over the course of time. The only information out there isn't quite scientific, but it has been used to try and debunk this claim. This was from a Professor Oja, and his reply was this: firewalking. Professor Oja went on to say, "If you've ever done firewalking, you'll know that one thing that you do not do is linger around in the middle of the fire pit. You cross as quickly as you can. From a scientific point of view, as long as you walk across quite quickly, looking at the thermal conductivity of your feet, you're not going to have enough thermal energy going into the soles of your feet to burn you. You're absolutely fine, just don't hang around in the middle." In a similar way, the transit time through the Van Allen radiation belt right at the beginning of the Apollo voyages was incredibly short. Traveling through the Van Allen radiation belt, if you were going fast enough, which you would need to be if you're going to the moon, would be no problem whatsoever and would cause little to no physical harm. Another source that points to the moon landing be a conspiracy for people who believe in this is a specific photo of Buzz Aldrin carrying equipment used for experimentation along the moon's surface. Conspiracy theorists believe that there is something wrong with this photograph, as there are no visible stars shown on the horizon line above the surface of the moon. Conspiracy theorists say, if the image really was taken on the moon, then shouldn't the sky be filled with stars? I mean, after all, there's no atmosphere to distort the image, there's no clouds to interrupt that dark black view. Theorists argue that the lack of stars in the Apollo mission photographs prove that the event was staged. NASA could not have faked the full wonder of the lunar sky, and so according to theorists, they simply chose not to include any stars at all. One scientific thought pointing towards debunking this theory is that both the astronauts and the lunar landscape themselves are brightly lit by the sun. The sky may look black, but we need to remember that at this point it was in fact daytime on the moon. If you were going to take a photo of a brightly lit scene, your camera's shutter speed would need to be fast and your aperture would need to be incredibly small. In that situation, far-off objects, such as stars, would likely not even show up. Another question that aids in people believing that this was a hoax is the idea that if we went to the moon in 1969 and we have had over 50 years of technological advances, why haven't we gone back? Thinking that if we haven't gone back with all the new technology that we possess, maybe we were never there in the first place. Throughout the 1970s, there were ambitions to establish a permanent lunar base before turning the focus to the next major space exploration challenge, which would be Mars. None of that ever happened, but it wasn't because of some kind of grand design conspiracy. It was simply human geopolitics. According to many, our priorities simply changed. The Vietnam War came along, and then there was a change in geopolitical thinking. From the American standpoint, we had already won the space race, and just as we had gotten good at doing science on the moon, we abandoned it, and instead, our attention turned to the space shuttle program, and laterally, the International Space Station, which has been permanently inhabited by teams of astronauts since November of 2000. A final theory on the moon landing being a hoax centers around wind and the ruffling of the American flag. For the nation, one of the crowning moments in national pride was seeing the stars and stripes being planted on the surface of the moon. There are photos of Buzz Aldrin saluting the proudly waving American flag on the moon, and that remains one of the most iconic images of the Apollo 11 mission, which declared U.S. supremacy over the space race and over our rivals at the time in the Soviet Union. The question raised by conspiracy theorists is this: if there is no atmosphere on the moon, then there would be no wind. So why would the U.S. flag be waving as if it were being blown around by a breeze? To many, this is more than enough proof to keep them locked in on the opinion that the Apollo 11 mission was faked. A simple answer has been used to debunk this particular claim. If you're to look at this picture and look at the top of the flag, you can see that there's been a telescopic pole extended along the top of the flag in order to make the flag stand up and fly proudly. Because the flag has been set up in such a manner, it appears to be waving in the wind. Allegedly, all of the wrinkles in the flag that appear to make it look like it's waving are just folded fabric material due to how the flag was packaged on its way up to the moon. We know that our government likely has secrets that they have kept from us. Every so often, another new declassified file comes out, and many of us are shocked to learn about the experiments or missions that our government has been conducting. Perhaps the moon landing was a hoax. Perhaps Stanley Kubrick and a team of filmmakers truly did set this up, film, and dazzle us with Hollywood movie-making magic. This is something that we may never know for sure. The reality is out there. Someone knows the truth. Unfortunately, this is something that we may never know the truth about. As a culture, we all tend to love art, music, and entertainment. There have been many conspiracies throughout all of these fields, but none seem to strike as large of a chord as the potential cover-up of the death of one of the most famous musicians in the world, Paul McCartney from the Beatles. Paul is dead. That is the urban legend and conspiracy theory that alleges that Paul McCartney of the Beatles died in 1966 and was secretly replaced by a look-alike. This rumor can be traced back to around 1966 and began actually gaining quite a bit of popularity around 1969, following reports that started to spread among American college campuses. According to this theory, Paul McCartney died in a car crash, and to spare the public from grieving, and to avoid a potential stoppage of the money-making machine that was the Beatles, the surviving Beatles, aided by Britain's M15, replaced him with a Paul McCartney look-alike. The Beatles then subsequently began communicating their secrets through subtle details on their albums. People that believed in this theory started to piece together images and elements of their songs and cover artwork. For the conspiracy theorists that believe in this, they are certain that the band's guilt finally got to them, and that they began hiding clues instead of openly admitting what they'd been up to. In the song Taxman, George Harrison gave his advice for those who die, which allegedly meant Paul. The entire Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album was awash with Paul is dead clues. One of them being that the Beatles had formed a new band featuring a fictional member named Billy Shears, supposedly the real name of Paul's replacement. The album contained a song written by John Lennon called A Day in the Life, which had the lyrics, "He blew his mind out in a car," and then allegedly, after that, the recorded phrase, "Paul is dead, miss him, miss him, miss him," which became evident only when the song was played backwards. Lennon also allegedly mumbles, "I buried Paul," at the end of Strawberry Fields Forever. Another clue for people who believe this was that the original cover of the 1966 Yesterday and Today album featured the Beatles posed amid raw meat and dismembered doll parts. This allegedly symbolized Paul McCartney's gruesome accident. If fans were to place a mirror in front of the Sgt. Pepper album cover, directly at the center of the drum, the words Lonely Hearts on the drum logo could be read as number 1, the word 1, number 1, X, he, die, number 1, the word 1, and number 1. And then of course, there's the Abbey Road cover on which John, George, and Ringo forwent all pretense and pretended to cross the street as a funeral procession. John wore all white, like he was a clergyman. Ringo was dressed as the mourner in black. George allegedly donned jeans and a jean jacket like a gravedigger, and Paul wore no shoes, which allegedly meant that he didn't need them because he was dead. Paul was also walking out of step with the others in the band. There is also a belief that the words number 9 in the song Revolution Number 9 from the Beatles' White Album became Turn Me On, Dead Man, Turn Me On, Dead Man, when played backwards. One of the most interesting tidbits that propels the Paul is Dead rumors forward come from the Rubber Soul album. The title, Rubber Soul, is written in the shape of a heart, indicating a false soul amongst the bandmates. On the cover of this album, the Beatles and the Paul McCartney lookalike are all peering downwards. Many have said that they are looking into the grave or standing over the grave of Paul McCartney. The lyrics in the song Rubber Soul are as follows. I've just seen a face. Had it been another day, I might have looked the other way, and I had never been aware. A female voice then says that a man must break his back to earn his day of leisure. Will she still believe it when she's dead? The lyrics continue. I'm looking through you. Where did you go? I thought I knew you. What did I know? You don't look different, but you've changed. I'm looking through you. You're not the same. Your lips are moving. I cannot hear you. You don't sound different. I've learned the game. You were above me, but not today. The only difference is you're down there. You've changed. You've changed. You've changed. After almost half a century of dealing with the infamous Paul is dead rumors, Paul McCartney finally addressed the conspiracy theory himself. In an extended cut of his carpool karaoke segment on The Late Late Show with James Corden that aired on August 20th of 2018, Paul McCartney summed up his reaction to the debunked theory that threw Beatles fans into pandemonium during the late 60s. Paul simply said, we just kind of let it go. Paul McCartney, if this is the real Paul McCartney, has gone on throughout the years to record music with other legendary artists such as Michael Jackson and Chris Novoselic and Dave Grohl of Nirvana. If this Billy Shears character is still running about and impersonating Paul, he's getting a lot of miles out of this conspiracy theory, wouldn't you say? The Satanic Panic was a ritual abuse scare and moral panic that began in the 1980s in North America and continued to go on throughout much of the 90s. The Satanic Panic was fueled by claims of Satan worshipping. This moral panic consisted of over 12,000 unsubstantiated cases of satanic ritual abuse, starting in the 1980s and spreading throughout many parts of the world up until today. The roots of the Satanic Panic are traced back to the 1980s publication of a book called Michelle Remembers, which was co-written by Canadian psychiatrist Lauren Pazder and his patient and future wife, Michelle Smith. The duo used the discredited practice of recovered memory therapy to make sweeping, lurid claims about satanic ritual abuse, which Smith was involved in. After the initial origins found in this book, the Satanic Panic seemed to be fueled by claims of Satan worship made up of several different components. Components involved in the conspiracy theories about these satanic cults were based on child and sexual abuse, human ritual sacrifice, teenage abduction rumors, animal mutilation, claims of actual Satanists such as the Church of Satan, the Temple of Set, and the Satanic Temple, many claims against heavy metal bands and horrorcore music artists, as well as claims against violent and fantasy games such as Dungeons and Dragons. Many years before the Satanic Panic erupted and took hold of the hearts and minds of many Americans, Anton LaVey had founded the Church of Satan in San Francisco, California. The Church of Satan was founded in 1966, and Anton LaVey proclaimed that 1966 was year one, the first year in the age of Satan. Somewhere in 1969, Anton LaVey wrote the Satanic Bible, which basically outlined the principles of LaVeyan Satanism and the rituals involved. As discussed earlier, one of the major claims that took hold for the Satanic Panic was the evidence in cases of animal mutilation. For many decades, we've had strange, unexplainable animal mutilations all over North America. Most of the time, the past occurrences were sometimes attributed to UFOs. During the peak time of the Satanic Panic, most cases of animal mutilation wrap themselves into conspiracy theories about Satanistic rituals. In 1984, there were rumors of animal sacrifices in Edinburgh, Illinois, and those were attributed to teenage devil-worshipping cults. In 1986, a news story ran claiming that mutilated animals were found in Modesto, California, which were also attributed to a devil-worshipping cult. Artistic vision is solely owned by the artist. The artistic vision of an artist makes up the sounds, styles, and overall aesthetic of that artist. This is not necessarily up to only the artist. Sometimes there are teams of handlers managing basically what comes down to public relations and public imaging. Some of the musicians that were highlighted for the Satanic Panic scare didn't do a lot to try to relieve themselves from the burden of that image. In 1985, police raided a suspected cult house in Holland, Ohio, and confiscated a trove of rock music records, claiming that they promoted satanic activity due to the content and cover art on the albums. Rock musicians and groups such as Ozzy Osbourne and AC/DC were shortly after accused of contributing to satanic activity. There were many other groups in the heavy metal genre that felt the pinch due to the Satanic Panic, such as Wasp, Slayer. Even the granddaddies of rock and roll, Metallica, were looked at as possible satanic cult members. The tie-in between the Satanic Panic and violent or fantasy gaming came around 1988, when teenage Dungeons & Dragons participants in Lancaster, Wisconsin were accused of animal mutilation and planned baby sacrifices in some sort of satanic ritual context. There was also a movie starring a very young Tom Hanks by the name of Mazes and Monsters, which showed Tom Hanks playing a character who descended into madness and apparently had a hard time differentiating reality from fantasy based on his involvement in playing Dungeons & Dragons or some similar game. Claims of the Satanic Panic conspiracy theory are still abundant today, though they seem to go by different names, and though the targets are called different names, the fundamental underlying claims are still very similar to what they were 40 years ago. Currently, people still claim that there's the appearance of child abuse within the movie and music industries. Somewhere in the mid-90s, a small, low-budget production movie of a famous murder case came out. The movie was entitled My Sweet Satan, which was about Richard Allen Casso Jr., nicknamed Ricky, who was also known as the Acid King. Ricky ended up killing his 17-year-old friend, and much of the stories about Ricky portrayed that he was involved in some sort of satanic cult, due to the heavy metal music and role-playing games that he took part in. During the attack that led to the death of 17-year-old Gary Lauwers in Northport, New York, Ricky was alleged to have commanded Lauwers to say you love Satan. According to the two other teens that were present, Lauwers is said to have instead replied, I love my mother, before finally giving in to Casso's demands. The case of Ricky Casso Jr. has gone on to be a topic for books, movies, and documentaries, as well as being the basis of a hit song by the band Wheatus entitled Teenage Dirtbag, in which the author of the song places himself at the intersection of the Satanic Panic, in which he deals with fallout from Ricky Casso's actions due to the music that the author himself listens to and enjoys. During the time of the Satanic Panic, there were so many allegations of evil acts happening throughout the country, and they eventually nearly all became attributed to some hypothetical satanic cult. It seemed like all of these rumors merged in order to form one elaborate story. In that story, somehow, all of these very different rumors combined to make one plausible story about an underground satanic cult that was operating secretly throughout the nation. Through media involvement and growing panic among concerned citizens, the satanic cult panic grew into a North American pandemic. Several criminal charges were brought upon those accused of involvement in satanic cult activity, provoking national media coverage with a salacious position. By the mid-1990s, skepticism was starting to grow concerning the realities of all those allegations, and a majority of the rumors were eventually proven false. According to those that have tried to debunk this conspiracy theory, the existence of a satanic cult was ultimately the biggest component of the myth. The idea that there was a cult comprised of Satan worshippers who operated in an underground network and performed sacrificial rituals. Both the rituals and the organization were the major components of the cult's myth. In the ideas of the rituals, the killing ritual has always been central to the idea of the supposed satanic cult. The stories of rituals were always about human and animal sacrifice. There are tales about the abductions of newborn babies, usually from hospitals, solely for the purpose of ritualistically sacrificing a pure, untainted human being. In line with that, there are rumors that there is quite a large amount of prestige being put on abducting a blonde, blue-eyed virgin for the purpose of ritual sacrifice, which was usually performed on Halloween or Friday the 13th. Animal mutilation always played a large role, with the sacrifice of the animals or the body parts being used in offerings for Satan. To drive the panic home even further, very realistic, real-world atrocities were attributed to these satanic cults, such as the kidnapping and sexual abuse of young children. There were several satanic ritual assault criminal trials in which those accused were acquitted of all charges due to lack of any verifiable evidence. Many people who had previous convictions in line with the satanic ritual abuse charges were also overturned around the same time. Towards the middle of the 1990s, there was a shift in media coverage from that which supported the rumor and panic of the satanic ritual assaults towards those which were skeptical of all of the claims. Many public media figures that had previously supported the rumor and panic, who also contributed to their spread, began to apologize for such oversights and lapses of judgment. In 1987, journalist Debbie Nathan published The Making of a Modern Witch Trial in the Village Voice in New York, which was a story about a daycare case in El Paso, Texas. Debbie Nathan was the first prominent journalist to raise a national alarm about the injustices resulting from the witch hunts taking place in daycares due to the satanic panic. In 1992, the FBI wrote and published a formal report discrediting the satanic ritual abuse scare that had taken so much space in the hearts and minds of many people throughout the 1980s. In 1995, news reporter and talk show host Geraldo Rivera publicly apologized for promoting the satanic ritual abuse and recovered memory panics. In the end, virtually no evidence was ever discovered to support the allegations of satanic cult activity by the components that made up the satanic ritual assault scare. The concept of satanic ritual abuse and what constituted that was never clearly defined in North America. As discussed earlier, in the mid-1990s there was a shift, and those who were previously portrayed as criminals during the satanic ritual assault scare were now portrayed as victims of severe rumor panic. Throughout all of this, the idea of a satanic cult created a much scarier and much larger threat for the entire nation than those individual occurrences that were not connected to Satanism. Throughout the panic, and due to all the rumors and accusations, many lives were ruined, and many still remain in prison for crimes that they claim they had never committed, as well as a few that still remain in prison for crimes that they say were never committed, period. So many of us rely on air transport to travel throughout the country, as well as experiencing international travel. For most of us, we deplane, wait to get our luggage, spend what we hope is a very short amount of time in the airport, and then board another plane to get to our location. Have you ever been in an airport where you felt like something just wasn't right? Many people claim that the Denver International Airport is a hotbed for conspiracy theories. According to some, the Denver International Airport showcases sinister sculptures and secret bunkers. The airport allegedly has swastika-shaped runways, as well as murals that point towards a New World Order takeover, or possibly an alien invasion. There are strange design choices inside of the airport as well, such as sculptures of gargoyles nearby the baggage claim. Conspiracy theories about the Denver International Airport have been around for more than 2 decades, and many non-believers attribute this to the airport's mix of bold public art, unusual architecture, and infamous construction problems. There's a theory that the Freemasons, a centuries-old secret society, has controlled the airport ever since it opened. The Freemasons, with alleged ties to the New World Order, are a group of global elites who wield power over international affairs. A reason for this belief is that a dedication plaque at the airport's south entrance, dated March 19, 1994, contains a time capsule which bears the symbol of the Freemasons, as well as a reference to the New World Airport Commission. Along with this, quote-unquote, strange markings have also been noted around the airport, supposedly indicating secret texts or alien languages. Those who debunk this claim that the Freemasons are a legitimate fraternal organization who have civic ties to the airport's dedication. There truly is no evidence to suggest that they have any hand in ongoing planning or decision-making at the airport facilities. Anti-Masonic conspiracies date back more than a century, were clearly dusted off and updated in advance of the 2012 apocalypse fever. According to those who put together this time capsule, it contains no secret society scripts and no mysterious contents. The capsule is supposed to be opened in the year 2094, and it contains coins, a signed opening day baseball from Coors Field, a pair of shoes owned by Mayor Wellington Webb, and a few Blackhawk tokens from the casino, among other small knickknacks and items. The conspiracy theories surrounding the art and some of the design features within the airport seem to float around a few things. One of them seems to state that the airport's 40-piece public art collection, most notable for its colorful 28-foot-wide murals by artist Leo Tanguma, as well as its gargoyle sculptures near the east and west side baggage claim areas, and a giant Mustang sculpture, are clues to a sinister influence at the airport, which can often be attributed to the Illuminati, the Freemasons, the New World Order, or Nazis. Like most conspiracy theories, this parallels talking points that were on the internet at the time of the airport's opening, and has also been given fuel over the years by conspiracy-based radio hosts. These hosts love to point out that they can see Nazi or fascist imagery in Tanguma's murals. They also love to point out the ominous and seemingly random nature of the gargoyles, and the fact that a portion of the 32-foot, 9,000-pound Mustang sculpture, which does feature glowing red eyes, fell on and killed its creator, Luis Jimenez. In truth, the meaning of Tanguma's murals are frequently divorced from the context of their creation. They tell a hopeful story of peace and environmental stewardship following times of war and pollution. Conspiracy theorists rarely see this and fail to believe it when mentioned, but rather focus only on the grim imagery and not the rainbow-laden resolution that can be read from right to left in the mural, "Children of the World Dream of Peace." The red eyes in the Mustang sculpture were allegedly a homage to Luis Jimenez's father, who was said to have worked with neon signs. Heather Kaufman, director of arts and public events for the Denver International Airport, went on record saying, "Hindsight is 20/20, because really, the eyes of the Mustang could have been any other color of neon." As for the gargoyles, they have historically been used as decorative yet functional downspouts, and in general as longtime symbols of protection to ward off evil spirits. In the case of Denver International Airport, the gargoyles are simply design elements who are playfully popping out of open suitcases resting upon pillars. The conspiracy theory pointing to underground bunkers and aliens goes somewhat like this. Somewhere hidden beneath the airport's underground baggage transport tunnels is a secret bunker, or possibly a series of bunkers, designed to house billionaires and the global political elite in the event of an apocalypse. There are stories that lizard people, reptoids, or evidence of aliens are also thought to be lurking around down in those tunnels. Contractors who originally worked on the airport, which went over budget and opened 16 months behind schedule, reportedly saw evidence of bunker entrances and unexplained tunnels. An investment into a multi-million-dollar automated baggage system failed to work as designed, which fueled doubts about the intent of the baggage system as well as the scale of the construction. To top that off, an alien drawing allegedly appeared on the walls underground, and blurry footage of lizard people have appeared on conspiracy theory websites. The truth about the tunnels is that this is a place where many people work in the various levels underneath the airport, ferrying luggage in between the ticket counters to the planes and to the baggage claim areas. The Denver Post-Paper was given a tour of the tunnels and saw that all the plumbing and electrical infrastructure appeared to end at the underground area's lowest level. Hiding anything else underneath that would be an engineering feat on par with a channel that connects England to France. The automated baggage system was actually used in various capacities, mostly by United Airlines up until 2010. An airport official who had been interviewed stated that workers have been known to don lizard masks and perform pranks while the media were on tours, including one sighting of a lizard person caught on camera by Fox 31, KDVR Denver, in a video that has been since circulated as evidence of the existence of lizard people. To wrap up this portion on the Denver International Airport, we discussed the alleged Nazi symbolism that's been discovered. The theory states that Denver International Airport's location, which is approximately 25 miles from downtown Denver, swastika-shaped runway configurations, and various barely concealed symbols of Nazism and fascism hint at many a large number of sinister plots. There's also a tunnel that is said to connect Denver International Airport to NORAD, which is nearly 100 miles to the south, near Colorado Springs. Nazi conspiracy theories have been amongst the most popular online conspiracy theories for at least the last 2 decades. And despite the Denver International Airport's recent, tongue-in-cheek embrace of most of these conspiracies, officials for the Denver International Airport have shied away from directly addressing them, which some conspiracy theorists see as a sign of their validity. For debunking purposes, taking a close look at aerial photography of the supposedly swastika-shaped runways would lead one to seeing that these reveal only a lumpy, misshapen, and largely interpretive swastika at best. The rotating fan-shaped design of the runways allows for optimal takeoff into and against the wind from different directions, depending on weather and traffic patterns. Additionally, a 90-mile-long tunnel from Denver International's remote location to NORAD seems highly unlikely and very cost prohibitive, given that the world's longest underground rail tunnel, the newly opened Swiss Alps traversing Gotthard-based tunnel, is less than half that length and took more than a decade to excavate and construct. Is there truly something sinister happening at Denver International Airport, or have there been a multitude of decisions made that make it quite easy for others to pour more gasoline onto the burning fire of conspiracy theories? CERN. CERN. This is taken directly from the website of CERN. At CERN, we probe the fundamental structure of particles that make up everything around us. We do so using the world's largest and most complex scientific instruments. What is CERN's mission? At CERN, our work helps to uncover what the universe is made of and how it works. We do this by providing a unique range of particle accelerator facilities to researchers to advance the boundaries of human knowledge. The laboratory, established in 1954, has become a prime example of international collaboration. Our mission is to perform world-class research in fundamental physics, provide a unique range of particle accelerator facilities that enable research at the forefront of human knowledge in an environmentally responsible and sustainable way, unite people from all over the world to push the frontiers of science and technology for the benefit of all, and lastly, to train new generations of physicists, engineers, and technicians, and engage all citizens in research and in the values of science. From this basic gleaning and description on the website of CERN, it seems that they're an organization which houses facilities for scientific purposes, with the intent of possibly bettering scientific knowledge for all of humankind. That's not what conspiracy theorists believe, and we can't talk about CERN without talking about the Large Hadron Collider. Here is some information on that. The Large Hadron Collider, otherwise known as LHC, is the world's largest and most powerful particle accelerator. It first started up on September 10th of 2008, and it remains the latest addition to CERN's accelerator complex. The Large Hadron Collider consists of a 27-kilometer ring of superconducting magnets with a number of accelerating structures to boost the energy of particles along the way. Well, what does this do? The Large Hadron Collider is three things. First of all, it's large. It's extremely large. So large that it's referred to as the world's largest science experiment. Second, it's a collider. The purpose of this is that it accelerates two separate beams of particles in opposite directions and then smashes them into each other head-on. These particles are known as hadrons. Essentially, physicists are smashing hadron particles together and conducting experiments with these highly energized particles. But, is this the truth? Here's what some people believe is really going on at CERN. In 2019, a conspiracy theory originated from the Twitter thread entitled, "Did the World End in 2012?" which was created by Twitter user Nick Hinton. Hinton claims that CERN, or the European Council for Nuclear Research, destroyed the world in 2012 during its Higgs boson experiment while utilizing the Large Hadron Collider, and since then, all of us have been living in a series of simulations. Nick Hinton also believes that as soon as our world was destroyed, CERN cleverly transferred our consciousness into a parallel universe so that we would never be able to remember the real ending to our own universe. To support this claim, Nick and many of his followers have cited the Mandela effect examples, like people seeming to have memories of visiting the Statue of Liberty's torch, although in reality, access to the torch was closed in 1916 after the occurrence of the Black Tom bombings. Nick has also alluded to the idea that Stephen Hawking had issued a warning that the discovery of Higgs boson particles could possibly result in a catastrophic vacuum decay. A comment very similar to this was made by Hawking, but this is not what he was referring to. The theories that CERN has ripped a hole in the fabric of space and time and created an alternate reality is one that we find quite endearing, although we do have a bit of a hard time wrapping our heads around it. As recently as just a couple of weeks ago, in April of 2024, social media users began to make posts suggesting a connection between the reboot of the Large Hadron Collider and the April 8, 2024 solar eclipse. Some of these posters claimed that this was a calculated effort by CERN to harness and utilize solar energy. In response to this, CERN issued a statement saying that it has been conducting experiments since March and that the project has no direct link to astrophysics. One post reads as follows: "Very interesting, especially how CERN chose to turn their Large Hadron Collider back on the day of this solar eclipse, April 8th. Are they attempting to harness the energy of the solar eclipse?" Another post states, "As the energy is directed from the moon, the CERN accelerator will harness this frequency and amplify it. It will then likely gain momentum and be directed to dark portals where entities gather and wait for signals to act in accordance." Now that one takes it to a completely different level. We would like to think that that last post was made by someone who was simply trolling and trying to be as outrageous as possible. In a previous statement, CERN had stated that the Large Hadron Collider is restarting for after a winter maintenance break and has been conducting experiments since March. They claimed that their first stable beams had returned around April 5th. According to CERN, the timing is completely unrelated to the eclipse. There is no link between the solar eclipse on Monday and what we do at CERN, said Arnaud Mousselet, head of CERN Media Relations, in an April 5th email. Many of the alleged conspiracy theories that are focused around CERN truly hold no basis in scientific fact and seem, rather than anything else, to simply be scare tactic type opinions that have been created by users of social media. One of those such opinions, posted by a TikTok user, claims that CERN is hiding this from you. This creator allegedly believed that the machine would open up a portal to another dimension once it was turned back on. After the Large Hadron Collider was turned back on, the user followed up saying, "Nothing happened. There's been a timeline change. Wait and see for the upcoming changes for all of those who manifested." Some claim that CERN is causing what is referred to as a collective mass delusion by creating portholes to alternate dimensions. The people that believe in this theory are on the lookout for shifts in reality and Mandela effects to help explain changes in our actual reality due to the activities conducted by CERN. Cynthia Sue Larson, author of Reality Shifts and Quantum Jumps, stated that she has been paying attention to see whether reports of Mandela effects might increase now that CERN's Large Hadron Collider fired back up again. Cynthia went on to state, "So far, I have not yet noticed large-scale reports of new Mandela effects in the past day or so, though it does seem that there is a large and growing interest in the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect is attributed to CERN through the theory that CERN has opened up new timelines or new realities in which our lives continue, yet the elements of the realities we were living in have changed in some minor ways, such as the Berenstain-Bears Mandela effect, or the effect which has given us this name, the death of Nelson Mandela, in which some people hold a memory of Nelson Mandela dying while imprisoned, and others argue that Mandela was freed from prison, went on to live many years, and then passed away. We do have to state that we really do enjoy this particular conspiracy theory, as we may be coming to you right now from an alternate reality. We're going to conclude this portion on CERN by discussing the alleged CERN ritual hoax. According to Wikipedia, the CERN ritual hoax is a found footage video that depicts a fake occult ritual occurring on the grounds of CERN, the intergovernmental organization that operates the largest particle physics laboratory in the world. This video became extremely popular among conspiracy theorists in August of 2016. The video shows several people dressed in black cloaks surrounding a statue of the Hindu deity Shiva, which is one of the most complex gods in India, and who embodies seemingly contradictory qualities. Among many things, Shiva is known as both the Destroyer and the Restorer. According to those who were pushing this video, these cloaked figures were apparently performing a human sacrifice on the grounds of CERN in front of the Shiva statue. Many people have commented on this video, saying that this ritual was in apparent mockery of other existing conspiracy theories, which suggest that CERN intends to use the Large Hadron Collider to create a portal to hell, summon the Antichrist, and potentially destroy the universe. This video ends with the person who's filming crying out and quickly running away. In response to this video, much like everything else, representatives for CERN seem to be on top of trying to squash any conspiracy theories that arise, as according to the organization, they are trying to conduct science for the benefit of humankind, and they would like to keep a positive light on their work. A spokesperson for CERN stated that the video was a prank and that no one was actually harmed. CERN has stated in its FAQ on its website that the video was fiction and that the actions were far outside of its professional guidelines and done without any official permission. The representatives for CERN then go on to state that CERN does not tolerate this kind of spoof and that it can give rise to misunderstandings about the scientific nature of their work. There are so many theories and interesting concepts out there in regards to CERN and what these physicists may be doing. We urge you to find some sources, dive in, and see what you can find. But on top of that, we do urge you to check your resources and to pay attention to any possible outlining agendas that may be being pushed by those who are telling you any of these conspiracy theories. Do your research, do it well. Make sure that you're informed before making any decisions. So many conspiracies. So many more tales to tell. Hopefully you've enjoyed this installment about conspiracy theories. If so, leave us a comment, like, and subscribe, and let us know. This is a topic that we could go on about for many, many multiple uploads, but we're not going to do that unless this is something that you enjoy as well. Feel free to suggest any conspiracy theories that you would like to hear more about. And that's all we've got for this time. Once again, we thank you so much for being here with us and sharing your time with us. And as we sign off, we hope that you have sweet dreams.